Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the game we love for the hardcore college football fan. That would be you. And also, of course, help build the channel by liking the videos. Bring your comments down below. And, of course, share the videos and subscribe. We got Justin Tatavio on the line from Ironman Football. That's ironmanfootballblog.com. You can also join his work on State of the U. Justin, how you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. So for everybody out there, Justin joined us last week. We broke down Miami's offense, Dan Enos versus Mark Richt, and a few other things. So check out that video. Also discussed Chip Kelly. Again, check out the video because we'd like to have Justin on a regular basis just to talk about offensive football in particular and breaking down the X's and O's for us. All right. We keep hearing this term, the air raid. It's a Mike Leach term. Recently, obviously, he's had success turning around Washington State. Cliff Kingsbury first going to USC, now on to the NFL, where despite a losing record at Texas Tech, they're enamored with trying to amp up the offense there with whoever's going to play quarterback. And then Graham Harrell replaces Cliff Kingsbury's offensive coordinator at USC because they want the same style and the same lineage there. We keep hearing this term, and there are spread formations all over the place and quick pass concepts. What really defines the air raid?
For me, I think the book, The Perfect Pass, is a good place to start. And so it's a great book. It's a fun story because it's about how Mummy and his start, and Mike Leach comes into it a lot. And obviously he's pretty interesting and eccentric of a character to follow. And so with Leach kind of providing these insights, it's about Hal and his journey from the high school ranks. I believe he was at like UTEP and then wound up obviously progressing his career to Iowa, Wesleyan, Valdosta, and Kentucky. And I'm actually going to see Hal speak in somewhere in North Carolina that I'm not even sure where it is, in some Ramada Inn on the 26th, 27th of April. So I'm excited for that. With the air raid, I think they really define it. He was using two backs and tight end when it first started. So I don't think it's formation. I think the air raid is almost a concept. It's a philosophy and more of a scheme in a sense. It's the way that you play football. So you could be hurry up, no huddle, or you could huddle and take it slow. Like, I don't think that stuff that we usually associate with matters. I don't think it's empty sets or 10 personnel. I think really with the air raid, it's a way of life. It's a thought process. It's how you philosophize your practice schedule, the way that you play ball, the use of the field, and the use of space.
All right. So you mentioned Hal Mummy. Tim Couch was, of course, the quarterback that engineered that offense that landed him a #1 selection with the Cleveland Browns at the NFL draft. So it worked out rather well. Kentucky not on the football radar, had some successful seasons under Hal Mummy. More recently, Mike Leach is probably running it to a degree that's more successful than anyone in terms of wins and losses, and in terms of yardage and so forth, in terms of turning around Texas Tech and then turning around Washington State. So he seems to be a bit of a master at this point. So what makes it more effective?
I think with Mike Leach, the thing that you hear most often is that Mike Leach is a purist to it, right? So he runs the same, more or less the same offensive install every spring and every fall. He installs the entire offense in 3 days and then just hits repeat, so that it's well ingrained into your head. So they just install the entire offense in 3 days, and then they go back and install it in 3 days again, install it in 3 days again. So he's starting over and teaching. That would be called chunking. The idea of breaking it into pieces and then teaching it, and then having you go kind of back over it again. I think that is something between his purist into it versus Holgerson adding in a lot more of a run game. Maybe even Lincoln Riley running GT counter, which wasn't an original play, and the mindset, of Mummy and Leach. And Leach is really the one who kind of grew the running game from it, which many people probably don't believe, but it was more based on draw. I don't want to say ISO and trap, because they felt like everyone ran those in high school, so they could spend less time teaching them. And then they progressed to where Leach, because of the kind of the stylization, he wanted to just run zone. So it became more of a zone draw, zone lead, An outside zone now, I think, is what Hal Mummy's real focuses are on. And I think that is why Mike Leach is so successful, because he's stayed very true to the system, and he's very simplistic for him, but complex for you to see. You think you're seeing 5 different plays. It's really the same play.
So, Justin, it seems as though there's a few things that would come into play to choose this type of offense. Number one, maybe originally, is that football is a physical game, and if you don't have the athletes to stack up with the other guy on a regular basis, but you think you can get a couple key positions taken care of, it seems to take pressure off the offensive line. Balls out of the hand of the quarterback pretty quickly. So you don't have to have an elite talented quarterback, but if he's accurate and he makes the right decision and can get it out quickly, and then just guys that can catch the football, they don't have to be freakish athletes, but they're reliable.
Yeah, and I think so. Regarding the offensive line, the style of pass protection that they use is almost like playing basketball. You're backpedaling almost. You're like working yourself into position. You're trying to get space. You're just cutting yourself off, like cutting that person off from the quarterback, using yourself. So it'd be like cutting off the basket using your body and making him go around you or through you. And through you, for football, you're just going to hold on to him and let him run you over. It's called run him over slowly, right? You're not out there to just like grab a guy and throw him around like Nebraska in the 90s. You're actually just backpedaling, setting up, and getting ran over slowly. So you are a roadblock in the way. You're not somebody that's being aggressive in the scheme, which is why draw works, because it's pass protection. And zone blocking can be quite aggressive. Clemson runs a form of zone blocking that's quite aggressive, where there's a lot of combo blocks that come off the block onto the linebacker. It's a little more aggressive zone. Mike Leach is running a much more passive zone. So, yeah, I think it helps the offensive line a ton. It helps the quarterback because the reads are difficult in a way, but it's a lot more like just finding guys that are open. I saw Phil Longo speak last weekend at North Carolina. He's an old Leach guy. And Phil Longo's comment was, we're either scream or blur. So scream would mean I'm screaming, I'm open. And blur would mean there's a blur of another color going by. And that's just the way that they read. They don't read coverages because everyone runs them differently. It's scream and blur.
Well, that makes it a little bit more, and it's easy for me to say sitting here, but simplistic for the quarterback if he doesn't have to read the coverage, and he's just, that they've got a concept that kind of plays on its own versus trying to read the defense. I got Justin DeTavio on the line. Ironman Football also does work for State of the U, breaking down X's and O's. We're talking air raid, Mike Leach, Hal Mummy, and so forth. I'm going to go back to the term you threw out after the first question, was mindset. So another portion of this is obviously you're the aggressor. It plants into your players' minds that we're taking it to the defense.
Yeah, I think you're the aggressor in the sense of you're taking offensive strikes. So you're trying to score as many points as possible. The Hal Mummy reasoning behind that with Mike Leach was that they needed to get players into a rural area of Iowa. How do you do that? Well, you're going to do it by being fun. If all of a sudden we're in the paper for throwing for 4,000 yards and scoring 45 touchdowns, you're going to have attention and you're going to be having fun. If I tell a wide receiver at Georgia Tech back before, obviously not now with Coach Collins, but before, or Navy, look, you're going to block and cut guys, and maybe once a game you're going to get a post route. We'll see if the guy can reach it there. It's not as fun for you. But if I'm telling 4 or 5 guys in the field, you are a threat on every single play. You might catch the ball. The majority of what we do is designed to get you 20-yard catches. Now, maybe not 20 yards downfield because mesh is ran at 3 yards and 4 yards, and they touch hands and all as they go by. But you catching the ball at 3 yards and working your way up 20 because the lanes are so clear that I think you're having fun. It may be easy to sell me as a wide receiver or a quarterback on why I should go play for Mike Leach. If you really look at your odds of making the NFL and that's your supposed argumentative point, well, the quarterbacks and the air raid, well, that's not true anymore because you're looking at Kyler Murray, you're looking at Baker Mayfield. I think the NFL is finally starting to adapt, adapt or die. And your product is either going to slump and other guys are going to score a lot more points, or, you're going to have to adapt to it. You have to adapt what the kids know. And word association or just calling plays, hey, mesh is mesh, right? Like there isn't a whole lot of conversation point. 6 is 6. It's not dub right, X over 192 Z pop, whatever the hell. Like, I made that up on top of my head, but I'm sure it's true. I'm sure some idiot out there has that. But we like to use more simplified terminology. I mean, we have 2 pass protections. Like, there isn't a whole lot. Some of the guys have 3. You might be maxing out in the area at 3 pass protections: a 2-step, a 4-step, and a sprint out. And they don't sprint out a ton. So it's very simplistic. And mindset is, we're going to be extremely simple for us, very complex looking for you.
Yeah, and that's probably a misnomer from the fan base, is that the perspective that when I throw out mindset, that when you throw, you're the aggressor. If you're throwing 40 or 50 passes, you're aggressive. If you run that much, you're not aggressive. And that has to do more with play calling and conservative and game management situations more than actual, it's the first quarter and we're running a lot versus passing a lot. And then the also thing that the thing in regards to defensively, I would think would be one of the philosophies is that you just contain everything, and then you hope that over the span of 80 yards they make a mistake and put themselves in a bad spot. But if you wrap up the tackles, shoot, they might complete 8 out of 10 passes for the drive, but then they got a punt at the 35 or 40 yard line because you just made the tackles in space.
Yeah, and if you're going to look at it on the flip side of the whole thing, stopping the air raid is not going to be easy for you. I guess you should call Washington and ask how they do it every year so well, because they're the ones who seem to really have a grasp on how to stop it.
Maybe some bad weather help too.
Yeah, bad weather doesn't hurt, but I mean that probably would be the biggest. Expose might be the right word, but biggest research project you could do is to look at what Washington does and try to just completely tear it down to the parts and then build it back to the whole. How do they stop it so well every year? That would be the best question. Is tackling could definitely be one thing, having the speed to keep up with making mistakes, because you are going to pass guys off inappropriately. Now, how do I have a safety who can run out and pick it up? I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they have been so good at stopping it, but I think also they have a mindset that they're going to stop it and they're going to win. And when guys have something over you in their head, the game, is very mental, and it's very mental and emotional. That's why they have sports psychologists, right? So I think sometimes you can just get into your own head, and sometimes the air raid is in guys' head, and sometimes it's the other way around.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, you mentioned Mike Leach and running the ball effectively, which people would snicker at, but that's certainly something that I noticed in talking to a lot of Washington State bloggers and so forth, and covering the team, and just the ramp up from like 3-9 to winning 10 and 11 games and going to major bowl games, is that yeah, they didn't run it a whole lot more, but they were much more effective. Like when he first got there, the first season or two, the rushing numbers like per carry were just ungodly pathetic, like 2.5 yards per carry. And then within a couple of years, I got to think because of improvement of offensive line and personnel, but also just because of the passing game being so effective, that it opened up, to where they're running for 4.5 and 5 yards per carry.
Yeah, they improved the recruiting. I mean, that takes time. You got to prove you can win, right? And then from there, they're not in a hotbed of talent, right? Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. They're poaching California kids in Utah. Maybe Arizona guys. They're not in a local hotbed. So it takes time to build. There, I think they proved their strength and conditioning. They have Amir Owens now as head strength coach, who was at Eastern Washington when they were very successful. And so he's now the Washington State football strength coach, which is a huge portion. Like if I was to get a head coaching job tomorrow, the first thing I would hire is a strength and conditioning coach. It's your number one hire. Ohio State, Mickey went from Florida to Ohio State with Urban Meyer. That was his number one hire. First thing he did was got Mickey up there. And obviously he's won 3 championships with him combined at 2 schools. That's the number one hire. When Miami was really good in the 80s, it was Coach Moffitt, right? He was the strength guy who then went to LSU, made them really good. So strength coach is huge. I think Mike Leach has really made that priority for him to, if we're going to get 2-star guys, let's develop them into 4-star guys. If we're going to get 3 stars, let's make them 4 and 5 stars, right? Make them NFL talent. So that's huge for him as far as that goes. I think that has been a huge portion of why you're seeing a better team in general, a better overall program, right? I think with the running game, we have to talk to our backs about it's touches. It's not carries anymore. It's a mix of I'm going to carry the football here or there, but I got to be comfortable with catching it, and I've got to realize that that's going to be a huge part of what I do, those swing routes. You know, the low OTB sit downs and the swing routes, and maybe occasional running back screen. Like, I can't care about running the football. I've got to care about getting in my hands. So touches over carries is definitely a huge talking point. I think he had found the right back that really enjoyed that. I can't think of his name, the guy who did just had, but I mean, Williams.
Yeah, James Williams.
He was all about touches. I mean, every time the ball went in his hands, it matters a run or pass. He made something happen with that wheel route off of some of their other games and stuff that they run.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, Justin Tatavio on the line. Ironman Football State of the U, breaking down the air raid offense. No, you got to go in a few minutes. One other thing, anybody else out there from the coaching perspective that you think runs this well or has a certain brand of it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, with Harrell over at USC, I saw a little bit of their spring game highlights. It looked like it was already picking up, and I'm sure they're going to score a lot of points with the quarterback they have in that system. He's a very bright guy. You know, I think you can see it at Houston now with Dana. He's going to run it very well. I'm sure Spavital will run it at Texas State. You're going to see Kendall Briles use it at Florida State, and Blackman threw for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns in their spring game. Longo's going to use it at UNC and be very successful. Dino's going to use it up at Syracuse, a little bit different of a blend. Lincoln Riley obviously is a huge one at Oklahoma. And now with a real defensive coordinator, you're going to see them be even better, which is hard to imagine. You know, it's going to be used as a wrinkle in a lot of things people do because you want option routes because they're fun and because you're never wrong, right? You know, if I call a slant and somebody has inside leverage on me, but the slant also turns into an outside release fade route based on that, all I have to do is look at the quarterback and nod. He knows I'm going to run outside release. I'm never wrong. And that's where the run pass option was such a beautiful thing is you're never wrong, right? I didn't call a run, get 8 or 9 in the box, and get stuck in it. Now I can get out of it and get a pass without having to say a word. People were picking up on audibles and stuff like that. You know that something's changing, right? All of a sudden you're under there for 4 minutes. Something's changed. But if all I do is just take a snap, read a guy, and throw, count a box, read a guy, throw, nothing's changed. I haven't said anything. I haven't given anything away. So I think that everyone uses part of the air raid now in their system, whether it's with 6, four verts or using quick screens and bubbles and stuff like that. It's going to be everywhere. It's just your purist is Mike Leach, and your branches are just enormous, and how many guys have worked for him in some capacity or under him, with him, and have been. Josh Heupel obviously played for him in '99, and I think Oklahoma went from 100 and something on offense to like 30th in a season. And that just tells you the system works. Especially works when you have Oklahoma caliber players. That was a JUCO quarterback whose career was pretty much shot in Heupel, right? And he resurrected him into a national champion. He wasn't there for the championship, but it was next year in the same offense. So I think you're going to see it. It's going to be fun to watch this year to see what Washington State does. Every time I count Mike Leach out, and I'm like one of his number one fans, he proves me wrong. So I'm not even counting him out anymore. I'm just going to assume they're going to win 9 or 10 games.
I'm almost positive Heupel was there for the win, for the championship win in 2000.
Heupel was. Mike Leach was not.
Oh, I got you.
He went to Texas Tech after 1 season there.
All right, Justin Tatavio, State of the U, Ironman Football. We appreciate you stopping by, educating us, Justin.
All right, thank you very much.